Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says limits of cooperation. The article here is speaking about cooperative societies. 97th Constitutional Amendment Act introduced Part 9B to the Indian Constitution. What does it deal with? It deals with the cooperative societies. Recently, we have the Supreme Court of India which has said that some parts with respect to the cooperative society will have to be squashed. Let us try and understand what is this judgment given by the Supreme Court of India. Before that, let's have a brief idea with respect to the cooperative societies. What are these cooperative societies? These are the institutions or a society. What happens? There will be voluntary association of individuals. They will all come together. They will have a common agenda. They will have a common interest in a particular economic activity. So these voluntary association of individuals come together. They establish a society under the Cooperative Societies Act of 1912. So these individuals, they all come together. They have a mutual agenda. They want to help each other and they also want to empower each other, which is why they form a society. That society is called as the cooperative society. To establish this cooperative society, they have to register under the Cooperative Societies Act of 1912. Who can establish? Who can be part of this society? This will require about 10 individuals. Who are these 10 individuals? Anyone who is above 18 years of age who would be able to enter into a contract. Such an individual can be part of this cooperative society. So basically, the amendment introduced Part 9B of the Indian Constitution where it defined the powers of the state legislature, the center to regulate the incorporation, election and governing of all these cooperative societies. So the 9B of the Indian Constitution dealt with the powers that were given to the cooperative society, how elections has to take place, what should be the governing body, who should be present in it. All these powers were defined in the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act, which introduced Part 9B, which was all about cooperative societies. What is the question now? Why did this particular case go to the Supreme Court of India? In this particular case, the Supreme Court of India was asked a simple question. What was the question? Whether the center has the power to introduce this particular amendment in reference to the cooperative societies. Does the central government have the power to define who the governing body has to be? What are the election rules? This was the question that was asked before the Supreme Court of India. So this question basically meant whether the central government had the power to bring this constitutional amendment. Even if they had the power, did they violate some of the fundamentals with respect to the amendments? Was what was the question asked before the Supreme Court of India. Before it went to the Supreme Court of India, a judgment was delivered by the Gujarat High Court. So that reference and appeal was asked in the Supreme Court of India. So why was this question asked? Let us try and understand. We have one of the important schedules called as the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. What does it do? It has a list. List of what? First list is called as the union list. Then we have the state list, which is the list 2. And finally, what we have is the concurrent list. So the subjects which are part of the union list, who would be able to make laws? It is the central government, the union government. The matter which is in the state list will be governed by the state governments. Legislations can be passed by the state governments and suitable changes can only be introduced by the state governments. Then we have the concurrent list where the central government and the state governments would be able to make laws. But both the center and the state have made laws, and if there is a conflict in such a situation, the law made by the center will come into existence. That is what we know about the 7th schedule. In 7th schedule, in the list 1, what we have is entry 43. What is this entry 43? It deals with incorporation, regulation and winding up of trading corporations, including banking, insurance and financial corporations, but not including cooperative societies. The minute we look into this entry 43, it clearly says it does not include cooperative societies. Now let's look into Entry 32 of the state list. This is the second list. It speaks about incorporation, regulation and winding up of corporations other than those specified in list 1 and universities, unincorporated trading, literary, scientific, religious and other societies and associations including cooperative societies. So when you look into this particular entry, it clearly speaks about the cooperative society. So who has the power to make the laws? Who has the power to bring regulations into it? It is the state government, which means the Supreme Court looked into this particular case and it asked the central government, dear central government, you did not have the power to introduce this particular legislation. Okay, now that you have introduced this particular legislation with an item which is in the state list, you should have also consented the state. The states, about 50%, should have also given consent to it. Why? Because this is one of the entry list which is present in the state list. So ideally, this should have been an amendment under 368 of 2, which would also require 50% of the consent from the state governments. Did it happen in the present situation? No. So how can you do it is the question asked by the Supreme Court of India, and it said those parts which impinge upon the rights of the state government, such will be quashed, says the Supreme Court of India. So basically, the entire 97 constitutional amendment will not be quashed, but instead those parts which is impinging upon the rights of the state government will be quashed, says the Supreme Court of India. The same was also held by the Gujarat High Court as well. As I told you initially, this was a case which went to the Gujarat High Court, and Gujarat High Court also said the same thing, where it said that those parts which impinge upon the rights of the state government, such will have to be eliminated, deleted, struck down, says the Gujarat High Court. So basically, what is the Gujarat High Court saying? That there are some powers which is about the fixation of the maximum number of directors of the cooperative society, or the duration of the term of the office of the elected members of the board, or the conduct relating to elections, or the time period of audits that has to take place. All these are the rules and the regulations imposed by the central government which is impinging upon the rights of the state government. Ideally, it is the state governments which should be able to make these rules and regulations, but you, the central government, have come into it. So the state governments are not able to bring up any of these rules and regulations, which means these sections which are only restricting the powers of the state government will have to be struck down, said the Gujarat High Court. The same has been accepted by the Supreme Court of India. So the Supreme Court of India, making use of the doctrine of the severability, has ensured that only those sections which are impinging upon the rights of the state government, which are impinging upon the legislative powers of the state government, such will be quashed, says the Supreme Court of India. Now the question is, what is this doctrine of severability? Let me explain this with the help of an example. Let's say there is a law drafted by the union government, or it can be the state government. Let's assume hypothetically that there are about 7 sections. These 7 sections in itself is not unconstitutional. They are not ultra vires the constitution. They are not impinging upon the rights of the citizens. But there is one section in this particular law which is taking away the fundamental rights of an individual, or it is violating certain basic structure of the Indian constitution. So what does the Supreme Court say? You delete this particular section, but you can keep the other 6 sections in that particular law. So doctrine of severability basically means that the entire law is not wrong, but there are few sections which is impinging upon the rights of the state governments, or it can be about the individuals, or it can be about the organizations. Just remove this particular section from that particular law. So in this particular case, we have certain sections which are only impinging the rights of the state governments, so only delete them, but the entire law need not be deleted, said the Supreme Court of India. However, do remember, this is in specific reference to only those which are in a particular state, but there might be cooperative societies in multiple states as well. This can still be regulated by the union government, and at the same time, with respect to the union territory as well, it can be regulated by the parliament and the central government. So basically, this is in specific reference to those states and the rules that are made by the state governments, not in reference to the multi-states or the union territory. What does this article say? So this article here goes on to say that the original idea or the intention of the bringing of the cooperative society is a beautiful legislation. Yes, it's a beautiful legislation. The intention was good, the objective was good, and the idea was to accomplish a welfare state and to empower the people who are part of the cooperative society. In spite of the good intentions, the central government should not enter the domain of the state government. So basically, if there are certain laws which are violating the federal principles, that should not be undertaken in spite of the good intentions, says this article. So the legislative power, whether the union government has it, is all that matters if it is entering the domain of the state government where it does not have that particular power. In spite of having the good intention, it should not be done so, says this article. So basically, this particular judgment may cast a view also on the recent Ministry of the Cooperative, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says analysis by NGO reveals microplastics in Ganga. There is a Delhi based NGO called as Toxic Link. It had conducted an analysis along the stretches of the river Ganga, and according to its analysis, it has gone on to reveal that there is pollution that was caused by the microplastics. So, this particular NGO conducted the investigation. It studied the vast stretch of Ganga river, and it has now said that there is pollution caused by the microplastics along the stretch of river Ganga. Now the question is, what is this microplastics? Microplastics are those type of plastics that are less than 5 mm in length. They are recognized as a major source of pollution, and it might also cause significant impact to the environment as well. Before we understand what are the concerns as pointed out by this article, there are different types of plastics. What are these different types of plastics? We have polyethylene. These are used in plastic bags, storage and containers. We have polypropylene. It is used in bottle caps, rope, gear and strapping. Polystyrene, it is used in utensils, cups, floats, coolers and containers. Polyamide, which is used in rope, fishing nets as well as textiles. Polyester, used in textiles and boats. Acrylic, which is used in latex paints, coatings and medical devices. Polyoxymethylene, used in automotive parts and electronics. Polyvinyl, laundry, detergent pots, fishing bait. Polyvinyl chloride, used in pipe film and containers. Polymethyl acrylate, used in laminated safety glass as well. So these are some of the plastics which can be important for your preliminary examination. As to where are these used can be a type of question that is asked. Why are we discussing this? That is because all these types of plastics and different other types of plastics are found in Ganga. So basically, the highest concentration of such plastic was found in Varanasi. So three places were selected for this particular investigation, and they have found out that it is Varanasi which has the maximum amount of pollution when it comes to the microplastics. What did this study say? According to the study, we have the untreated sewage water, the industrial waste, the religious offerings made by the people in Ganga are all dumped into river Ganga, says this analysis. Then as and when these plastics are dumped into the river, they are broken down and ultimately they become the microparticles added to the ooze of the river. Finally, the river water stretches along different states in India and ultimately lands up in the Bay of Bengal, thereby polluting the ocean water as well. So it is not only polluting the river Ganga, but as and when it stretches from one state to another, ultimately falls into the Bay of Bengal. The Bay of Bengal region is also polluted, says this study. Because of this, it has created multiple concerns of pollution. What are these concerns? The results from this particular study has gone on to say that this is a grave concern. Why? Because the water from Ganga is not only used for drinking and bathing purposes, but it is also used for irrigation as well. So as and when people drink this water, they can get infected, and at the same time, since it is used in agriculture, it is used in growth of the agricultural products as well, and at the same time, what we see is the soil contamination as well. So the major problem is that this particular river contamination is also polluting the soil, which is what gives us the agricultural produce. This may ultimately land up in the human body as well. How? As we have just discussed, this will cause marine pollution. When it causes the marine pollution, the plastic enters the ocean water, and if you can see this particular image, there are these plastics from the digestive system of the fishes. So these marine organisms consume the plastics. These plastics are consumed by the human beings, and ultimately it is the human beings who will be the major sufferers. So the discarded plastic will contribute to the marine pollution, and these will have devastating consequences on all the marine organisms. One such example is the fish, as you can see in this particular image. So both the microplastics and other chemicals will eventually harm the human beings as they follow up the value food chain, and ultimately it may impact the entire ecosystem. We have the government of India, in order to overcome the pollution, has come up with the National Mission for Clean Ganga, but that is not enough, says this article. So the article here goes on to recommend that we require the multi-stakeholder approach, where people will have to come together. So the civil society will have to pitch in, followed by the government initiatives, and the private individuals and the company as well, all will have to come up together to make it a multi-stakeholder approach. It should not only be the government working for the people, but people should be active participants when it comes to all these programs, says this article. So basically, the microplastics are becoming omnipresent. They are present everywhere as well. So we have to stop the menace of plastic pollution to save not only the human bodies, but also other organisms as well. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says making decisions under stress. This article here is speaking about the chronic stress. What is this chronic stress? When an individual is going through a stress for a longer period of time, for a considerable period of time, for a prolonged period of time, and if it is untreated by the medical practitioner, this will result in what is called as the chronic stress, which means that particular person will have other issues surfacing from the stress. This might be neurological problem, this can be heart ailment, it can be other impact on the body. So when the stress is not treated for a long period of time, that will cause what is called as the chronic stress. People would be able to handle small stresses, acute stresses, but if it happens for a considerable period of time, that happens for a long period of time, they would not be able to handle it. During this period, when there is excessive stress that a person goes through, he releases an hormone called as the cortisol. So kindly remember, the stress that was caused by the pandemic might have also released this hormone called as cortisol, which might have impact to the people, says this article. So this article says that because of the chronic stress during the pandemic period, it would have increased the risk of the heart diseases, sleep disruptions, mood disorders like anxiety and depression, and this might have also killed the brain cells as well, and this will also reduce the size of the brain. So we have to take steps and measures to ultimately bring down this chronic stress, says this article. But there are other parts of this article as well, which is not that important. All that you have to understand is only about the chronic stress. Now let's look into the next article. This article says leaving Africa behind. The article here is speaking about vaccine inequity. What does this mean? This means that there are high income countries, there are upper middle income countries, they are able to vaccinate as many people as possible in their countries. But when you look at the statistics and compare the same to African countries, they were able to administer to very less number of people when it comes to vaccine administration is what is this article all about. So we have discussed in the past as well about the vaccine inequality. So let's go into depth of this article. But all that this article gives you is fodder to your mains examination, where it says low income countries have received only 0.27% of the COVID-19 doses administered worldwide, while high income countries have got 30%, upper middle income countries have got about 52%, and they have acquired more than 80% of the vaccines. And who are the major sufferers? Countries in Africa are the major sufferers. The high-end countries are able to get the vaccines, but that is not considered for the lower poor rank countries in Africa, says this article. So basically, what we have to understand is that there is vaccine inequality. There is also vaccine nationalism as well, where countries are manufacturing, producing these vaccines only for their people first, and later, if there is excess of the vaccines, only then it is exported to other countries, is the basic concept of vaccine nationalism. We have discussed them in the past as well. So this article, all that you have to remember is just few statistics which can act as the fodder for your mains answer rating. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, will the new e-commerce rules really favor consumers? It speaks about the e-commerce rules. We have an elaborate video that is already recorded. The link will be given in the description box, so you can look into that particular link to understand what is this e-commerce rules all about. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Reforms in cooperative sector should not be at the cost of federal principles. Explain the statement in reference to the recent Supreme Court judgment on cooperative societies. Microplastics pollution in the Ganga river may accumulate up the food chain, potentially impacting whole ecosystems. Discuss. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.